again, and welcome to Robyn's Reviews. We are still talking about a song for you by Robyn Crawford. All right, so we're actually on chapters 9 and 10. Starting with chapter 9, Whitney is touring. All right, Robyn's touring with her as well. So remember with the release of Whitney's first LP. All right, I'm still dating myself. All right, wanted to share this with you. I still have a copy of this. All right, her very first album, and boom, her very first cassette as well. All right, so the Greatest Love Tour, which Robyn sort of changed the name to the Greatest Drug Tour because of all the drugs that were available throughout the tour. So Robyn talks about the road, and she talks about how Whitney first started opening for Luther Vandross and Jeffrey Osborne, formerly the lead singer for LTD. Well, that worked out fine, and then Whitney's album did so well, that's when her tour started. So Robyn talks about that, and she tells how, well, when they were with, I digress, when they were touring with Luther Vandross, Robyn talks about how Luther was wonderful. He treated everyone really nicely. He was always checking on them. Do you need anything? Are you okay? So she definitely talks about that a lot. She also talks about, for those of you who love Luther Vandross, all of the songs that Whitney's mother, Sissy, did background vocals for. Wait for Love, The Night I Fell in Love, Since I Lost My Baby, things like that. If you love those songs, listen carefully. You'll hear Sissy Houston in the background. Okay, so Robyn also talks about when they were on tour. She said Whitney was like a big kid. They would race up and down the corridors in the hotels. If there was a basketball goal, they would play basketball. They would play ping pong. Also, Whitney would have them purchase crayons and coloring books. That's what she liked to do in her downtime. She liked to color. All right, so Robyn talks about how Whitney's brother, Michael and Gary, okay, the booger sugar bandits, okay, they love the drugs, okay, and she talks about how Gary was always in trouble from the moment that the tour started. He would just disappear, and people were afraid of him. Even his wife called Whitney because he was holed up in the hotel bathroom, and then when he came out, he just scared her, okay? So other people, not just Robyn, are talking about how scary Gary was. And of course, when you're doing drugs, all right, you're not acting as yourself, all right? So she talked about the drug problem on the road. And she also talked about how, you know, Gary had a negative energy. So before each show, they would be surrounded, you know, everyone would be holding hands, saying a prayer. And one particular time she states here that, you know, Gary walked up last, and Whitney says, "Oh Lord, don't allow Satan to have his way." So I don't know. He had some issues. Also, she talks about how Whitney was a homebody. So while everyone else was out on tour, you know, or touring the cities, you know, trying to look at landmarks or what have you, Whitney just wanted to stay in the hotel room. She wasn't one for, you know, going out a lot. And Aunt Bay, you know, had some of her personal food items that she loved: Ritz crackers, tuna fish, peanut butter, things like that. Fruity Pebbles she loved, okay? So she talks about that. She also talks about, you know, all the cities they went to on this very first tour, you know, Japan, Australia. So she said, Robyn said that Japan was her favorite, okay? She talked about that. And let's see, where are we? She also talked about, let me see, how she made this very first tour. You know, they were kind of homesick. They'd been gone for a while, and so they had to kind of suck it up until the tour was over. And also, 1986, they started working with Narada Michael Walden. Okay, he has a lot of people he's produced. Okay, so he's really good. And she talks about how, you know, they've just felt at home in his studio in California. She also talks about she and Whitney, I think Michael, she said that Narada advised Whitney that she needed to take a break, so they went on a break to, was it Hawaii? Yeah, they went to Hawaii for a couple of weeks, just Robyn and Whitney, you know, no television, no telephone, just a break. Also around this time, if you're familiar with the actor Robert De Niro, whom I love, okay, one of my favorite movies ever is Goodfellas, okay, he started calling Whitney. So he was in love with Whitney, and of course Whitney, he kept calling Whitney, and eventually she had to tell him, you know, that she wasn't interested, all right, so that's how that went. Also, Whitney was driving to New York one day with Michelle. She wasn't with Robyn. And Whitney was in her Land Rover. Another driver sort of tapped her car, and Whitney got out of her car and she went ballistic. Well, whoever the gentleman was, he looked at her and said, "Oh, wow, you're Whitney Houston." So Whitney abruptly jumped back in her car and didn't say another word. So her father told her she needed to move to somewhere else out of the city. She needed to move because now that she's, you know, she's really blowing up. She's really becoming famous. People are starting to notice her. So her father found a home for she and Robyn. And Robyn says it was a part of New Jersey she wasn't even familiar with. She'd never been to. And she said it was a nice house. And it was about roughly a little more than $2 million. So she and Whitney moved in there. Also during this time, she said that Sissy came to visit them one day, and Whitney, when she came off tour, she had the weave taken out of her hair. She was just letting her hair rest. And Sissy came by one day and looked at her and said, you know, "Why did you take your hair out? You look like a man." And she didn't even bother to look at how that hurt Whitney. So Robyn said it really hurt her. You could see the expression on her face. And her mother was oblivious to it. Well, you know, you may have an interview, you know. In other words, don't take the weave out, leave the weave in. So that's how that went. Robyn also talks about how, you know, she named Sissy Big Cooter, short for Barracuda. Those of you who look at Sanford and Son like myself, okay. And, you know, she just talks about how Sissy was just, you know, she carried herself in an aggressive way, you know, so. That's how it was. Also at this time, the tabloids were really going into overdrive. And every time they had an interview with Whitney, it was, you know, who are you dating? You know, what's your relationship with Robyn Crawford? So this is when they were really ramping it up, folks. And, you know, Whitney was, you know, she would always throw them off. But she was, you know, like, that's none of anyone's business. You know, who are you dating? Who are you in a relationship with? To Whitney, that was private, all right? So anyway, she talks about that, and, you know, that's pretty much it for now, chapters, 9 and 10. So I hope you enjoyed this content. So I'm going to try to speed through. We have several more chapters. If you enjoyed the content, please like, share, and subscribe. I enjoyed having you here at Robyn's Reviews. Leave me a comment in the comment section. I will definitely respond. Thank you.